Okay, so let's unpack this. When you picture millions of smallholder farmers across sub-Saharan Africa, you're often picturing a really precarious situation.
Hmm.
Their whole livelihood just depends entirely on seasonal rains.
Right. And that inconsistent rainfall means they're limited to what, maybe one or two harvests a year?
Exactly. Which locks entire communities into this persistent cycle of low productivity and seasonal poverty. It really feels like a huge structural challenge.
It is. It absolutely is. And it's a direct result of lacking core infrastructure.
Mhm.
Farmers are just caught in that cycle because they can't manage water on their own. When the rain stops, the farming stops.
And this gap, this huge structural gap, is precisely what KickStart International decided to step into.
Right.
So KickStart International, they were originally founded as Apertech back in 1991 by Dr. Martin Fisher and Nick Moon. And their mission seems so simple on the surface.
It does. Use affordable, appropriate technology, most famously their MoneyMaker pumps, to turn subsistence farmers into, well, successful agribusiness entrepreneurs.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really understand the alchemy of this model. I mean, how did Kickstart go from just a good idea for a pump to a scalable, super impactful social enterprise across 17 countries?
Yeah, that's the core question. We're going to drill down into their really counterintuitive business model, the simplicity of the technology, and this is critical, the adaptive strategies they use to overcome these huge hurdles, like farmer skepticism and just the sheer challenge of distribution.
Okay, and this is where the story really begins, because their core strategy just flies in the face of decades of what you might call traditional foreign aid.
Completely. The
Right.
founders weren't just observing poverty. They were seeing the failure of well-intentioned charity.
They saw that when equipment, wells, pumps, tractors, whatever, was donated,
Right, under the conventional aid models.
it often failed. The equipment would fall into disrepair within a few years.
And it's because there is this fundamental lack of local ownership and accountability.
The second it broke, that's it. The community couldn't fix it, they didn't have the spare parts, and I guess they didn't feel that economic need to maintain it.
Exactly. The founders concluded that the prevailing mantra, give it away for free, it just creates the wrong incentives. It fosters dependency, not entrepreneurship.
If you don't pay for it, you don't really value it.
You certainly don't treat it like a serious investment in your own future.
So Kickstart's response was this kind of radical counter-argument. Give farmers the tools to make money, but make them buy the tools. How did they even justify that? I mean, weren't they just asking donors for money to then sell a product?
That's the paradox they absolutely mastered. Kickstart sells the products, even if they're heavily subsidized, to make sure the farmer has skin in the game.
Right.
That commitment, that investment is everything. When a farmer spends their own scarce money on a moneymaker pump, they demand quality, they use it intensely, and they take real entrepreneurial ownership.
So they're not a beneficiary anymore, they're a customer.
They're a customer. And that's the difference between temporary relief and actual long-term economic transformation.
And their structure itself is what makes this work. It's this hybrid business model. They're a mission-driven nonprofit, but they operate with these really rigorous private sector principles.
Yeah, balancing social impact with financial sustainability. And it means they have to be incredibly strategic with their revenue. Most of their funding, maybe around 80%, comes from philanthropic foundations and individual donors.
And that's the money that covers the big, risky stuff.
Exactly. R&D, product innovation, and all the market outreach programs to reach the poorest, most risk-averse farmers.
But the really crucial part of the engine is that other slice of revenue.
Precisely. Roughly 16% of their funding comes from earned income, the sales of the pumps. And that gets immediately reinvested back into operations and, supply chain improvements.
So the donor money de-risks the innovation, and the sales revenue proves the model actually works on the ground.
It's proof of market demand. They're showing that you can apply these profit-oriented strategies inside a nonprofit to achieve massive social goals.
Okay, so if the business model is sell, don't give, then the product has to be just irresistible. So what exactly did they build that makes farmers want to buy it? Let's talk about the tech.
Well, the moneymaker is just a classic example of appropriate technology.
Yeah.
It's not complex. It's not high-tech.
No digital components?
No, none of that. It is technology tailored precisely for resource-constrained smallholders. The goal was low cost, high performance, and entirely human-powered.
The first one, the original Super Moneymaker, was a treadle pump. You operate it with your feet. And it could handle about 2 acres, but they didn't just stop there.
No, absolutely not. They kept innovating based on user feedback. And one of the most insightful design pivots was the MoneyMaker hip pump.
Ah, okay.
I mean, we know that in so many rural communities, women are primarily responsible for farming and getting water, but they often have less upper body strength.
So the design of the hip pump, it shifted the power source from your arms to your legs and body weight.
Exactly. It was about recognizing the operator's strongest muscle groups. The hip pump is smaller, it's lighter, and it uses your legs and body weight to operate, which makes it super energy efficient and user-friendly, especially for women and the elderly.
And then came the latest one.
The MoneyMaker starter pump.
Mm.
This one just lowers the barrier to entry even more. It's ultra portable, weighs only about 2 kilograms.
Wow. So you don't even need a vehicle. You can just carry it to a distant river.
You can carry it, exactly.
And the performance specs they got out of a human-powered device are just, they're remarkable. What kind of depths and distances are we talking about?
They engineered these pumps to consistently draw water from depths of like 6 to 7 meters.
Okay.
And then push it up to 13 or 14 meters high with a horizontal reach of well over 100 meters.
That's incredible. So it gives farmers all these different options, right? Sprinklers, drip irrigation.
Right, or just simple hose watering. And it lets them access water sources they probably thought were unusable before.
And because it's all muscle power, or sometimes solar, the farmer just completely eliminates fuel costs.
Which is a huge operational saving, and a critical reduction in carbon emissions compared to old diesel pumps.
So that combination, low initial cost, basically zero operating cost, and high efficiency is what delivers these transformative impacts.
It's everything. You, the farmer, go from praying for rain to having year-round irrigation. That means 3 or 4 harvests a year instead of just one.
And that economic shift is the most profound part. $700. That's the average extra net income these farmers earn every year.
And that number can sound small to us, but in rural Africa, that single investment, which is often repaid in just a few months, can be a 100% or more increase in household income.
It changes everything.
Everything. Analysis shows that income can increase by 300 to 400% on average. And the result is that this simple pump is estimated to be lifting 80% of its adopters out of poverty.
That's a direct hit on SDG 1. No poverty.
A direct, measurable hit. And beyond just cash, they improve food security and nutrition, growing high-value crops like fruits and vegetables all year round.
So you have an incredible product, you have proven impact, but how do you take a success story from one part of Kenya and scale it to 17 countries? They realized they couldn't just ship the pump.
No, they had to build the whole system around it. This is the system's approach to creating a market. KickStart knew that if the supply chains, the financing, the after-sales support, if any of that was weak, the pump would fail no matter how good it was.
And the scale is pretty staggering now.
It is. I mean, just in fiscal year 2023, they helped 13,000 more farmers get irrigation. And that's expected to generate over $7 million in new profits and wages for those communities.
So the logistics of that last-mile distribution in remote areas must be a nightmare for a centralized operation.
It would be. And that's why they wisely bypassed the weak traditional channels. Instead, they cultivated this wide network of local partners and dealers.
So local NGOs, community groups.
Small retail entrepreneurs. All partners who are already trusted by the farmers. And that trust is non-negotiable for overcoming that initial skepticism. A farmer is going to listen to their neighbor or a trusted local shopkeeper, not some big outside organization.
That peer trust is the currency of adoption, and they back this up with marketing, right? Demos, field schools, radio ads. I think there was a Swahili slogan.
Yeah, Imarisha Maisha.
Improve your life.
Improve your life. But the real scaling happens with the snowball effect. The single most effective tool, time and again, is word of mouth. The early adopters who succeed become these powerful, living advertisements.
And KickStart actively cultivates that.
They do. They see their satisfied customers as their best salespeople.
And this systems thinking went all the way to the top, right? It wasn't just local dealers. They were engaging with governments, with microfinance institutions.
Yes, they were acting as an advocate, lobbying governments for supportive policies, like getting import duty waivers on irrigation equipment.
And that's not just some bureaucratic thing. It has a real impact.
A huge direct benefit for the farmer.
Because if the government waives that duty, that's a direct cost reduction. That money doesn't go to KickStart.
No, it reduces the final purchase price for the farmer, making the pump that much more accessible.
Yeah.
You have to build that favorable environment around the product if you want it to succeed at scale.
But even with all of that, they still face some massive hurdles. Let's talk about the first one, affordability. Even subsidized, the price was still a barrier for the poorest farmers.
The ones who needed it the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, the solution had to be financial innovation. So on one hand, they kept working on cost reduction, which led to things like the ultra-low-cost starter pump.
Right.
But the critical move was partnering with microfinance institutions. They structured microcredit schemes that recognized the farmer was buying a capital asset, not, a consumer good.
But wait, that's a huge risk for a subsistence farmer relying on future income. How did they convince the lenders and the farmers that this would pay off so quickly?
By showing them the numbers, the speed of the returns. Because the pump lets a farmer immediately start growing high-value crops at a season, it can yield a full return on investment in a stunningly short time, like 3 to 6 months.
Wow.
So that minimized the risk for the lender. Farmers could repay the loans in 6 to 9 months. The pump literally pays for its own loan.
And they're still innovating on that front.
They are. They're piloting a rent-to-try-and-buy program now, which lets farmers test the pump first, and the rental fees count toward the final purchase.
Okay, so the second challenge was more cultural, just awareness and skepticism. Decades of tradition are rooted in rain-fed farming. Why would you invest your scarce cash in a tool for something you've never even seen before?
You fight skepticism with results. You show. You don't just tell. KickStart invested heavily in field days and demo plots, showing the actual potential of the land when it's irrigated.
And they tweaked their messaging.
They did. They refined it to really emphasize making money. Slogans focused on livelihood improvement, on family life, success. And they let the successful farmers become the spokespeople to convince their neighbors.
Okay, the third hurdle is just crucial for long-term trust: maintenance. In a remote area, if that pump breaks, the whole thing falls apart.
The whole venture collapses, and so does the farmer's trust. So KickStart's solution was decentralized support. First, the pumps themselves were engineered for extreme simplicity to minimize breakage.
And second,
They created a strong network of local artisans and technicians, often just training existing village mechanics, to provide quick on-site repairs. And they made sure spare parts were always stocked in local hardware shops.
so it reinforces the local economy at the same time.
Exactly.
So if we pull all this together, Kickstart's success isn't really just about the pump. It's about matching that tech innovation with just profound innovation in the business model and the delivery.
That is the definition of systems entrepreneurship. It's not enough to invent a great product. You have to invent the entire economy around it: the finance, the supply chain, the user training, the policy. It all has to reinforce each other. And KickStart was willing to learn and adapt. Pivoting away from the old aid models when they saw charity was just creating dependency.
And if we connect this back to the bigger picture, this simple pump has this huge multiplier effect on global development goals. Starting with SDG 2, zero hunger.
Absolutely. With irrigation, KickStart farmers can harvest crops for about 11 months of the year, compared to maybe 7.5 months with rain-fed farming.
That stability just virtually eliminates seasonal hunger for their families.
It does, and it supplies nutritious foods, vegetables to nearly 500,000 people every year.
And it also hits SDG 6, right? On clean water, but specifically on water efficiency.
It promotes more crop per drop. Controlled irrigation, whether it's drip lines or hoses, means way less wasteful evaporation than traditional flood irrigation. It just makes every drop of water go further, which is critical in drought-prone areas.
And finally, SDG 13, climate action. This technology is a powerful climate adaptation strategy at the grassroots level.
It really is. By giving them reliable water access, the pumps make these smallholder farmers resilient to drought and erratic rainfall. It helps them mitigate the immediate impacts of climate change. And they also contribute to mitigation by promoting human and solar power over carbon-emitting diesel pumps. They're adapting now without waiting for massive top-down solutions.
This deep dive, it really reinforces that central lesson. KickStart didn't just offer temporary aid. It created a scalable enterprise model around a simple, effective tool. They're tackling poverty not with handouts, but with genuine economic empowerment and ownership.
I think the biggest lesson for anyone in development is that scaling sustainable impact requires that holistic view. You have to look beyond the product and solve for the entire system. Technology, finance, supply chain, user training, they all have to work together. KickStart's model of selling money-making technologies for the poor created this self-sustaining pathway out of poverty, and it relies entirely on the farmer's own initiative and their entrepreneurial spirit.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? What really stands out in KickStart's journey? Maybe consider what other essential tools, whether they're for agriculture or health or education, are currently inaccessible to the people who need them most. Could they be unlocked by applying this kind of hybrid, market-driven model, a model that prioritizes self-reliance and ownership over traditional charity? Is there a critical tool right now just waiting for its own moneymaker moment? That's something we're thinking about.
Thank you for listening to Mission Possible, innovating for the world's most marginalized. This podcast is built on the outstanding work of our students, whose curiosity and commitment drive much of the research and storytelling you hear. Each episode is grounded in academic research and shaped through close collaboration with our partners. To learn more about the research and partnerships behind this podcast, feel free to contact us. Thank you for joining.